Hello, I am Ryan.
Hello, I am Amy. Welcome to Listen to English Podcast.
Well, we've got a really interesting collection of ideas here today about reading.
Yeah.
It's something we all learn how to do when we're kids, and it's amazing how important it stays throughout our lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating to see how people think about reading, what their personal experiences are, how it helps us learn, and even what makes it hard sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
So, looking at everything we've gathered here today, what stands out to you as the most important idea about reading?
I think the most insightful thing is realizing that even though reading is often something we do alone, it has a huge impact on us.
Right.
It's not just about understanding the words on the page. It's about how our brains work, how we see the world, and even how we feel.
Uh,
Like you mentioned, some people don't enjoy reading, so we're going to explore why reading is so important and, more importantly, how to make it more enjoyable.
exactly.
When you think about it, reading is the foundation for so much of our learning and personal growth, so understanding its benefits and challenges is essential.
I agree. It's easy to take reading for granted once we learn how to do it. It's almost like breathing. We just do it.
Yeah.
But you made a great point about the brain studies show that when we read, our brains are actually doing a lot of work.
Right.
It's not passive at all. We're processing information, making connections, and building mental frameworks.
Absolutely.
And it seems like all that mental activity has some pretty big benefits. Can you tell us more about how reading affects our brains?
Well, that brings us to a really important question about how reading affects our brains on a neurological level.
Okay.
It appears that reading actually stimulates lots of different areas in our brains. For example, when we come across new words or try to understand complex sentences, it activates the areas responsible for language processing.
I see.
But it goes beyond that. When we get lost in a story, other parts of our brains light up too, the parts that deal with imagination, empathy, and even our senses as we picture what we're reading. It's like when we exercise regularly, our muscles get stronger. In the same way, regular reading can strengthen the connections between these neural pathways.
That's a great analogy.
What's really interesting is that this stimulation isn't limited to the specific content we're reading. It can actually improve our overall cognitive function, things like focus and memory.
That makes sense. It's like giving our brains a full workout.
Exactly.
And it's not just about how we think, it's also about the information and ideas we're taking in.
Right.
It appears that reading exposes us to new vocabulary and different ways of expressing ourselves. This must have a big impact on our own communication skills, right?
Absolutely. Studies have shown a very strong link between regular reading and having a larger vocabulary. When you encounter new words in a story, you naturally start to figure out what they mean and add them to your own understanding of language.
Right.
It appears that by being exposed to different writing styles through different authors and genres, we can improve our ability to express ourselves clearly and effectively, both when we speak and when we write. Think about it. Effective communication is essential for almost everything in life, from our personal relationships to our careers.
That's true.
What's really amazing is that reading provides this constant, almost effortless way to learn and improve our language skills.
And it's not just about the individual words, it's about the bigger concepts, the information and the perspectives we encounter.
Right.
It appears that reading opens up a whole world of knowledge and different ways of seeing things, helping us to develop a deeper understanding of everything around us.
Exactly. Studies show that reading widely exposes us to different cultures, historical periods, scientific discoveries, and philosophical ideas.
Wow.
This broad exposure helps us to understand more and challenges our preconceived notions. What's particularly insightful is how reading can develop our critical thinking skills. When we engage with different viewpoints, follow complex stories, and encounter different arguments, we learn to analyze information, better evaluate different perspectives, and form our own conclusions.
All right.
And in a world where we're constantly bombarded with information, that ability to think critically is more important than ever.
So far, we've talked about how reading benefits our brains
Yeah.
and expands our knowledge.
Yes.
But let's not forget that reading can be a great source of pleasure and relaxation.
Absolutely.
It appears that losing ourselves in a good book can be a wonderful way to escape from our daily lives and immerse ourselves in a different world, whether it's an exciting adventure, a heartwarming romance, or a thought-provoking exploration of ideas.
Exactly. Studies show that when we get absorbed in a captivating story, our brains release endorphins. These are natural mood boosters that can make us feel relaxed and happy.
Oh, it's interesting.
It appears that focusing on a book can be a really effective way to de-stress and quiet the constant mental chatter we often experience in our busy lives.
That makes sense.
So in a world that can feel overwhelming and fast-paced, reading can offer a valuable escape and a healthy, enjoyable way to unwind and recharge.
You know, earlier you said that reading is like going on a small adventure inside a book. I love that image. It really captures the feeling of exploration and discovery that a good book can provide. It appears that books have this amazing power to transport us across continents, take us back or forward in time, and even introduce us to fantastical worlds that only exist in our imaginations.
Right.
It's almost like a virtual reality experience powered by the author's creativity and our own minds.
What's really fascinating here is the power of storytelling. Studies show that stories resonate deeply with us as humans. They allow us to experience different lives through the characters, develop empathy for them, and explore complex human themes in a safe and engaging way.
That is true.
So this ability of books to transport us and broaden our emotional understanding is incredibly valuable for our personal growth and our ability to connect with others.
So we've seen that reading offers a lot of benefits, from improving our cognitive abilities to expanding our knowledge to simply bringing us joy and relaxation. It appears that it really is one of the most valuable and enriching activities we can do. But with all these positives, why do some people avoid reading?
That's a great question. It raises an important point about the challenges that some people face with reading.
Okay.
It appears that one major obstacle is the perception that books are difficult or inaccessible. Maybe they had negative experiences with required reading in school, or they tried to read books that were too advanced, leading to frustration and a feeling of inadequacy.
I can see that happening. If someone's early experiences with reading were negative, or if they always feel like they're struggling, it's natural to want to avoid it.
Right.
It appears that another big hurdle is the perception that reading is just plain boring.
Yeah.
In a world full of fast-paced and visually stimulating entertainment, the quiet, sustained focus that reading requires can seem less appealing.
Exactly. Studies show that the instant gratification we get from other types of media can make the slower and often deeper rewards of reading seem less attractive.
That makes sense.
It appears that some people just haven't found the genres or authors that they really connect with.
Right.
So they end up feeling like all reading material is dry, academic, or just not engaging.
And let's be honest, time is a precious commodity for most people these days.
Absolutely.
It appears that finding time to read can feel like just another obligation on our already long to-do lists. People might think they need big chunks of uninterrupted time to really get into a book, which can be daunting.
That's true. The feeling of being constantly pressed for time can definitely make it hard to do things that don't feel immediately productive or essential.
Right. But as we discussed earlier, even short periods of focused reading can be beneficial over time.
Exactly.
So we've identified some reasons why people might not enjoy reading. It can feel difficult, it can be perceived as boring, and it can feel like a big time commitment.
Yes.
But the good news is that these challenges can be overcome.
Yeah.
It appears that there are ways to make reading more enjoyable and accessible.
Yeah.
What are some strategies that people who want to love reading can try?
Well, this is where we move into practical solutions. And your notes offer some great starting points.
Okay.
It appears that one of the most important tips is to start with simple books. The idea here is to build confidence and create a positive feeling. If someone has had bad experiences with challenging books, it can be really helpful to go back to reading material that's easier to understand, like well-written children's books or short stories.
Right.
This allows them to enjoy finishing a book and understanding it without feeling overwhelmed or discouraged.
I agree. Starting with something lighter and more engaging can help people build a positive association with reading.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to another important tip. Read about things you like.
Yes.
This might seem obvious, but it's often overlooked.
Yeah.
If you're passionate about a particular sport, why not read biographies of famous athletes or historical accounts of important games?
Right.
Or if you're fascinated by a certain period in history, try historical fiction set in that time or nonfiction books that explore it in detail. The key is to choose books that connect with your interests and passions.
Studies show that personal engagement and genuine enjoyment are really powerful motivators when it comes to learning and forming habits. When you're truly interested in what you're reading, it becomes a pleasurable journey of discovery.
Absolutely.
It appears that this intrinsic motivation can even make challenging material feel more accessible because you're driven by your own curiosity.
Another practical tip is to read a little every day.
Yes. This addresses the idea that you need lots of time to read.
Right.
It appears that even dedicating a small amount of time, like 10 or 15 minutes each day can make a big difference in the long run. It's about building a consistent habit like brushing your teeth or checking the news.
Exactly.
Studies have shown that establishing small, manageable habits and sticking to them consistently can lead to significant long-term benefits.
Right.
It appears that by making reading a daily ritual, even for a short time, you not only improve your reading skills, but you also create space in your day for enjoyment and all those cognitive benefits we discussed earlier.
And finally, a really interesting tip is to listen while you read.
Yes.
It appears that combining listening and reading can be really helpful, especially for people learning a new language or for those who struggle to focus on the printed page.
Right.
You could try audiobooks, where a narrator reads the text, or follow along with a physical book while listening to a podcast or an audiobook version.
That's a great idea.
This can help with comprehension and make reading more dynamic and engaging.
What's really insightful about this approach is that it involves multiple senses at the same time. Studies have shown that using more than one sense when learning or engaging with information can really improve our understanding and memory.
Right.
It appears that by both seeing and hearing the words, readers can get a better grasp of vocabulary, pronunciation, and sentence structure. This multisensory approach can also make reading feel more active, which can be especially helpful for those who find traditional reading methods less engaging.
So we've covered a lot today. Let's quickly review some of the key takeaways from our exploration of reading.
Okay.
It appears that reading is incredibly beneficial for our brains. It's like a full-body workout for our minds, strengthening the connections between different neural pathways.
And it's not just about mental exercise, it's about intellectual nourishment.
Right.
Studies have shown that reading is a primary way we learn new vocabulary, encounter different ideas and perspectives, and ultimately expand our understanding of the world. Plus, it significantly improves our ability to communicate with others.
And of course, we can't forget about the enjoyment factor.
Definitely.
It appears that reading can be a genuine source of relaxation, contribute to our happiness and well-being, and even give us a sense of adventure.
Absolutely.
But we also recognize that some people do find reading challenging, whether it's because they perceive it as difficult, boring, or simply too time-consuming. But the good news is that we explored some practical strategies that can help overcome these hurdles and create a more positive and engaging relationship with reading.
Exactly.
It appears that one important piece of advice for those who struggle with reading is to start with simpler and more accessible books. This helps build confidence and rediscover the joy of reading without feeling overwhelmed.
And it's equally important to choose reading material that aligns with your personal interests and passions.
Right.
When you're genuinely engaged and curious about what you're reading, the whole experience becomes much more enjoyable and rewarding.
Well, that brings us to the end of our podcast today. Thank you for joining us as we discuss why reading is so important and how we can all make it a more positive and enriching part of our lives.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure discussing this fascinating and important topic.
Until next time, keep those pages turning and those minds expanding.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. It really helps our channel grow and reach more English learners like you. By subscribing, you'll never miss a new episode, and by liking the video, you're letting us know you want more helpful content. Thank you for your support. It means so much to us.